For the 4 accused policemen were able to persuade the jury not to believe everything they saw on the screen. Now, a new videotape beating occupies our attention, and it too will be put on trial along with the 4 suspects. For today, George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
The FBI was central to the investigation and arrest of the 4 charged with beating Reginald Denny. Charles Parsons is the FBI agent in charge in Los Angeles. Mr. Parsons, good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
I know you can't and won't comment on the exact charges. They will be released later today. Can you tell us why they're sealed?
Well, they were sealed until the arrests were consummated, and so that they wouldn't be public record and interfere with the arrest activities.
Can you tell us whether or not all will be charged equally? In other words, will the one who held the foot down on Reginald Denny be charged to the same extent as the one who held the brick?
No, it wouldn't be appropriate to go into the charges right now.
3 of the 4 that you've charged are being characterized as gang members, and 1 as an associate. Can you tell us what the distinction is?
Well, there are 3 types of people associated with gangs. You have the actual members, you have the associates who hang around with them but don't participate usually in their criminal activities, and then they have the peripherals. And 3 of these are gang members of a particular gang that we were investigating prior to the riot.
That's the Crips?
Yes, the 8-tray Crips.
Okay. Others, Mr. Parsons, as you know, are believed to have taken part in the beating. How close are you to identifying and apprehending more suspects in association with this case?
Well, the first step in all of these cases, and this is only one of many we're going to address, is to identify the people involved. The charges are going to be decided by the prosecutors. The people that were arrested yesterday were the ones that were most involved in the vicious attack.
And Mr. Parsons, over 50 people died in the disturbances following the King verdict. Why was priority placed on finding those who beat up this one survivor?
Well, it really wasn't. Our priorities are, in this task force, are all the violent acts that were committed. We happen to have an investigation and happen to have a lot of information about these people. We're proceeding with 100 people in this task force to look at all the attacks. There were 58 murders, and we're going to be looking at the theft of guns, the arsons, and we're going to prioritize number 1 over those. The guns will be the one we're most concerned with, but we're also going to look at the most violent acts and those where we have a lead.
Are you telling me this one didn't have priority because it was so noteworthy, because everybody had seen it and been repulsed by it?
Well, obviously, we all looked at that and wanted to reach out and help Mr. Denny. But what I'm trying to tell you is that we were fortunate and that we had an ongoing investigation, and so we had a head start on that one. Certainly it's something we want to do. We can't allow these types of attacks in a civilized society.
Is there any reason, Mr. Parsons, to believe that what happened to Mr. Denny, tragic as it was anything more than what we'd have to characterize as random violence?
Well, maybe random violence, but the man almost died. If he'd been to the hospital a couple of minutes later, it would have been a murder. And I don't think it's random violence when we have 100,000 gang members in this town. They were doing this before the riots, and they're going to do it after it, and we have to make an impact on this problem.
How important to the case against these men is the videotape? Is it your sole evidence, or do you have eyewitnesses that are ready to testify against these people?
Well, I won't go into all the evidence, but we're not going to rely on any of these cases just on the videotape. That's a starting point for identification. We're going to go much beyond that.
Mr. Parsons, you're a law enforcement agent. You're not a sociologist, but I feel compelled to ask you, are you at all concerned that African Americans may see a huge disparity in the kind of justice meted out to those who beat Rodney King and those who beat Reginald Denny?
Well, people are discussing that. I think in this community, people look at gang members not from a race standpoint. The people in those communities most affected in the riot and by the gangs are minorities and disadvantaged, and there's a different perspective there. I'm not going to get into the Rodney King because we're still pursuing that. That case is not over.
But you're aware there's some sensitivity when people are likely to compare the two as they're going to?
Surely, but most of the victims of the cases this task force is going to be developing are minorities. The 58 killed, the bulk of those were minorities.
Charles Parsons, thank you very much for being with us, sir. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
We're back in a moment, right after this.
Every bud, every blossom will help you from the ground up with everything you want to grow.
Legislative leaders meet with the governor this morning to talk about the possibility of a special legislative session. Governor Terry Branstad has hinted he will veto the sales tax bill plus the state employee salary bill. That would force a special session to deal with the budget again. We'll be back with more local news and a look at the forecast in 25 minutes.
Back now, 8 o'clock. It's Wednesday morning. It's the 13th morning of May of '92. Among the horrifying scenes from the L.A. unrest was this one, the beating of truck driver Reginald Denny. Ahead in this hour, a report from his doctors and how he's doing, and we'll get some neighborhood reaction to the arrest made in connection with his attack.
You got a few questions?
And we'll continue our look this week at the new movie Lethal Weapon 3. This morning, we'll talk to the new face in the Lethal Weapon series, Rene Russo.
No, that's not a nice thing to say to a lady.
What, beep,
He's
beep?
not the one in the beard.
I figured that much. I thought beep, beep wasn't the nice thing to say either.
Oh.
We're back in, I think you'll be able to figure it out anyway. Studio 3B, I'm Bryant Gumbel here with Katie Couric. Margaret Larson is waiting for us at the news desk. We'll get to her shortly.
Also coming up, we're going to be saying goodbye to that smarmy Dan Fielding, made famous by actor John Larroquette. Dan will be going with the rest of the night court crew into the world of syndication.
Say that fast.
Hardcore night court?
Hardcore night court?
Something.
Something like that. On to the news desk. 8:01, Margaret Larson.
Thanks again. Good morning again, everyone. It's crunch time for the Space Shuttle Endeavour and its satellite rescue mission. Today, as the crew goes for broke, 3 astronauts are to walk in space at the same time for the first time. Crew members spent Tuesday inside the shuttle rehearsing their history-making effort. They've got one last chance to grab that stranded communication satellite before time runs out, and they have to come home. 2 of the previous tries almost met with success, but not quite. The FBI has subpoenaed videotape and still pictures from news organizations in a crackdown on rioters and looters. News pictures helped identify the 4 suspects now under arrest in connection with the televised beating of truck driver Reginald Denny. And during those deadly riots, looters included gun shops among their targets. Phil Schuman tells us that's allowed a lot of firepower to get into the wrong hands.
Authorities say all told, there are at least 2,000 additional guns on the streets in the wake of the riots, unsettling to area residents.
I'm scared my damn self. Ain't no telling who might come up and give me a gun, or I might have a gun in their damn pocket and shoot somebody.
To try and recover the looted weapons, local police and federal agents are making raids, confiscating what they find. And Tuesday, the LAPD displayed weapons seized in the arrests of the suspects in the Reginald Denny beating case. Chief Gates talked of the concern.
Gun stores and pawn shops, we believe they were targeted specifically to take guns and ammunition, and we're worried about that. And so it's a very high priority.
And what police are afraid of is that these guns that are being stockpiled will not be used in the ongoing gang warfare we've all seen so much of in the past. But rather the fear is that these guns will be used against police. The streets of South LA are covered with violent anti-police graffiti. And here is a flyer, a call to arms. Across the top it says, "Open season on the LAPD, the threat considered real." Ironically, this concern over stolen guns comes at a time when legal gun sales in the Los Angeles area are booming. People not just buying their first gun, but buying better guns. Phil Schuman, NBC News, Los Angeles.
George Bush already had a full plate, but he added a little gravy on Tuesday. The president is already assured of a first ballot nomination in Houston this summer, but he picked up even more delegates with primary victories in Nebraska and West Virginia. Bill Clinton was also a winner in those states, and he is so close to a first ballot victory that he's working on a running mate. Clinton has named veteran Democratic Party figure Warren Christopher to head up his vice presidential search committee. Overseas, some powerful punches were thrown across the border between Lebanon and Israel early today. Pro-Iranian commandos fired 2 volleys of rockets into Lebanon, or from Lebanon into Israel's so-called security zone along the frontier. Israeli warplanes almost immediately roared north across the border, blasting away at guerrilla bases. There was no immediate word on casualties or damage. As we've been reporting this week, the Roman Catholic Church in Ireland has been hit with a couple of damaging blows. First, an American woman accused the popular Bishop of Galway of fathering her child. Then the bishop, Eamon Casey, resigned, confessed, and admitted paying the woman hush money out of church funds. Today, foreign editor Dennis Murphy reports from Dublin on the impact of those events on the church.
The bishop, the money, the woman, and the boy. The shockwave of the scandal is still rolling here.
The news headlines. Annie Murphy has said she wouldn't.
In one of Dublin's oldest parishes, sympathies are spelled out in street debates.
But he only made one mistake. We're all entitled to one mistake.
Yeah, but he's a priest.
Why should you stop going to Mass, though? Why stop going to Mass?
I mean, there's lots of sinners around. Everybody has skeletons in their closets.
Perhaps the priest should be allowed to marry.
The Catholic priest's vow of celibacy is coming under scrutiny. 3 more priests have stepped down. The church offered no explanation. But the celibacy vow is causing pain for thousands of priests here, according to some church leaders. Ireland is deeply religious. Church and state are intertwined. Priests speak with a moral authority that reaches far beyond the pulpit. The bishop's disgrace has jolted Ireland. Celibacy, church finances, church teachings on sexual matters are all the subject now of a heated debate. Dennis Murphy, NBC News, Dublin.
That's the news now coming up on 8:06. Back to Bryant and Katie.
Margaret, thank you. We're just going to do a quick pivot here because it's Willard's turn. He's waiting for us down in...
Quick pivot.
Okay, pivot down in the nation's capital. Willie.
I'm going to... Oh, yes. I don't know who to pivot to. Once the buck stops here, is Harry Truman.
Pretty down there.
Oh, what a morning. It's going to be...
I'm heading your way. I should bring my sticks, I think.
Come on down. Listen, yeah, I'll fix you lunch. I got some asparagus. Make you walk funny, but it's fantastic. Happy birthday. Hey, we could even get off a couple of shots there on the farm. Can you hit a bull?
I beg your pardon?
I'll go out in the field and put the costume on. Hey, happy birthday this morning from Hallmark. How sweet it is. Speaking about a nice day, Harold Brown of Bradenton, Florida. Take a look. Good-looking man, still lives on his own, has a keen mind. We could use him around here. He is 100 years old today. Happy birthday from Hallmark. As we turn the page of life, we take a look at Ruth Davis of Anderson, Indiana. This is the 3rd try. She's 102 years old. I'm glad we did it. Happy birthday. Now, for the thousands of weather fans coast to coast waiting for the word, here's what's happening in your world even as we speak.
Well, some late-day rain showers maybe across central Iowa. We can certainly use some rain. Sunshine early with increasing clouds later in the day today. High today right at 74 degrees. Rain tonight, 53 the overnight low.
Okay, Bryant Gumbel is standing back in little old New York City.
All right, Willie, thank you. 8:07. In just a moment, we'll get an update on the medical condition of truck driver Reginald Denny and some reaction to the arrests of those who allegedly beat him. We'll get to that right after this.
In the course of a lifetime, you'll buy 2,450 batteries, but you'll only need one Tarkett Lifetime floor. That's why we call it Lifetime. For the name of your Tarkett dealer, dial 1-800-4-TARKET.
Klondike ice cream sandwiches are made from my 2 favorite foods, ice cream and cookies, in my favorite size. Big, rich ice cream between 2 chocolatey cookies. Serve chilled. Klondike, big sandwich, big taste.
Olympic glory used to depend on muscle, talent, and heart. Now you can add digital computer analysis, retinal scanners, and more, and that costs money. That's why every time you use your Visa card, money goes to help the U.S. Olympic team. So pull for the team and pull out your Visa card. Because at the Olympics, they don't take excuses, and they don't take American Express. Visa, it's everywhere you want to be.
Come on and nutritize your body. Come on and nutritize your mind.
Nutrisystem introduces the It's Too Good to Last Forever sale. Try us for $1 a day for up to a month, plus the cost of meals. $1 a day. It's too good to last forever.
Nutritize your life.
Nutrisystem for $1 a day. Hurry, offer ends tomorrow. Call 1-800-321-THIN today.
If I were going to create the perfect place, I'd start with the north. I would carve out rivers and rolling hills, then ride the moon south and warm the skies with a tropical sun. I would dot the west with little hometowns and fill the east with excitement. Right in the middle, I'd put a great big playground. I would surround it all with water, from coast to coast to coast. And I'd give it a name, Florida.
Costly engine wear occurs when you first start your car because even the best motor oils and additives are down in the oil pan. Slick 50 protects your engine at startup. It treats the engine, not the oil. Independent lab tests showed Slick 50 reduced engine wear by 50% for 50,000 miles. Since 1978, over 15 million people worldwide have used Slick 50. Starting your engine without it is a terrible thing to do.
Probably no image of the violence in Los Angeles will be more enduring than that of the young truck driver, Reginald Denny, being pulled from his truck and beaten. This morning, 2 of his doctors from Daniel Freeman Hospital are in our Burbank studio with an update on his progress. They are Dr. Madison Richardson, his surgeon, and Dr. Tim Goodwin, his ophthalmologist. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Richardson, let me start with you. Can you just tell us how Mr. Denny is doing?
Mr. Denny continues to improve quite well. His spirits are excellent. He still shows his irrepressible sense of humor. And we're quite satisfied with his progress to this point. Another milestone last night was that he was able to eat his first meal, and he quite well assured me that we would have trouble making enough Jell-O for him to eat.
So he had to eat hospital food?
Oh, yes, he does. You know, but I tell you, after having not eaten for approximately 13 days, any food, of course, is desirable.
I'm sure it tasted very, very good. How extensive, Dr. Richardson, were Mr. Denny's head injuries?
Quite extensive, actually. Upon seeing him for the first time, he was covered with blood. There were numerous lacerations, large laceration over his left cheek, depressed skull fracture on his right side, and practically every bone in his facial region was fractured. And we've since repaired those and really have gone through some quite rocky times over the past 13 to 14 days or so. But fortunately, he's such a very strong and determined individual that, you know, he's given us all the help that one really could hope for.
Dr. Goodwin, I know you were involved in the surgery, I guess, on Saturday, 3 hours of surgery. Why were you involved? He had a problem with his eye socket, is that right?
Yes, Mr. Denny, as Dr. Richardson mentioned, had fractures of practically every bone in his face. In particular, the bones underneath his eyes were badly fractured. These bones are eggshell thin and easily fractured with trauma, and this can cause a patient problems with their vision, can cause double vision and signs of the eye being pushed in. And as a result, we had to work underneath the eye to build a support to keep the eye in position.
Will his vision be affected?
His vision is very good at this time. He is actually at this time 20/30 vision in both eyes. He will have no long-term problems with his vision whatsoever, so we're very pleased about that.
That's amazing. Dr. Richardson made mention of the fact that Mr. Denny has a great sense of humor. Can you give us an example of that humor, Dr. Goodwin?
Yes, in getting ready for the surgery, we always explain the risks and complications of the operation. And even before Mr. Denny was able to talk, this is when he had the tube in his throat, he also asked if I could maybe do a chin job for him, and he pointed to his chin like this. So.
Just while you were at it, right?
That's right.
Dr. Richardson, I understand that Mr. Denny tried to bribe you, is that right?
Well, he, you know, I told him that there will be a lot of, that there were a lot of cards and letters of which he is very appreciative, by the way, coming in, and, you know, many of them contain money. He said, well, do you think there's enough money in there for me to convince you to let me go to the bathroom? For a person who's been confined to the bedpan, as many of you who've been in the hospital can appreciate, it's not just a casual request.
I understand. Dr. Goodwin, I know that you were in the hospital when Reginald Denny's daughter came in. That must have been a pretty frightening experience for her.
It was, and it was not only that, but a touching moment. When she came into the room to see him for the first time, he had tubes in his nose, tubes in his mouth, tubes to help him breathe, and she was really quite frightened by it initially. But what I did is I explained to her what each of the tubes was doing for Mr. Denny to make him well. I explained the feeding tube this is how he was getting his food, the IV is how he was getting his water, and this is how he was getting his air, and these things would eventually be coming out and he'd be just like he was. And she seemed to relax and converse with her father after that in a childlike manner as her daughter.
Yeah. Dr. Richardson, I know that Mr. Denny has been informed about the arrest. What was his reaction?
Mr. Denny has continued to show a lack of hostility, which obviously is inconsistent with good healing. He did get a bit depressed for a short period of time, but for the rest of the time he's always shown his optimistic and humorous outlook, and I really think that has sustained him through this entire ordeal.
And I know he doesn't really remember much about the beating.
No, he doesn't. And what he's looking forward to right now, and he assured me yesterday and the day before, to get out of the hospital as quickly as he can is his fondest desire.
Well, he sounds like he's the ideal patient, and he's certainly in good hands. Dr. Richardson and Dr. Goodwin, thanks a lot for the update.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now here's Bryant with more.
All right, Katie. The 4 men arrested Tuesday for the beating of Reginald Denny are all said to be tied to a gang called the Crips, the largest and most influential gang in the Los Angeles area. In Burbank this morning is a Crip named Jay, whom we first met on Monday. Jay, welcome back. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Gumbel.
You know these 4 guys? Damian Monroe Williams, Henry Keith Watson, Antoine Eugene Miller, Gary Williams. You know them?
No, not personally.
You know of them?
I know of them, yes.
What do you think of their being taken in and charged with this? What are your thoughts?
Well, I feel that last year, America viewed on video a black man was severely beaten, Mr. King, by 5 white officers. A year later, America viewed 5 young black men beating a white man, Mr. Denny. So I feel that anytime you have injustice, that people are going to react in a violent way. And I think that's what America's seeing.
But I hope you're not suggesting that one wrong justifies another.
No, I do not agree with the 5 young black men who had severely beaten Mr. Denny, just like I don't agree with the 5 officers who had beaten Rodney King.